consistency is always better than motivation. Motivation leaves. It doesn't stay. So consistency, showing up no matter what you feel like, no matter what it looks like, and your 100% is going to look different every day, right? Sometimes 100% is 5 meals and 200 grams of protein, and some days your 100% is a prayer and a Snickers bar. So I always tell people that. I'm like, look, like some days you're not going to get it all in, but if it's 100% of your effort, like it counts.
Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erica Cruz. Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Chingona Revolution podcast. This is probably the third podcast that is being recorded in person. And there's something so special about being in person because you get to see each other's body language, and it just is a whole another element of connection. I feel like the conversations that happen on this podcast are already amazing, but there's another dynamic that happens when you are in person. So today's guest, I've known now for a little over a year, and she's actually my kickboxing instructor. So if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen that I really enjoy kickboxing. I come pretty often. I do share it on my stories sometimes. And I was in the process of figuring out where it was I was going to move to. And when I found this gym and when I found kickboxing, I was like, you know what? I can stay here a little bit longer because fitness is just such an important part of life. And I'm excited to speak about your journey with fitness. But I remember I attended one of your classes and you were talking about the importance of our thoughts. And like we had both read the same study. And I was like, she's my vibe. And you were the one who got me to keep coming back to the gym. And immediately I was like, she's my people. And we obviously developed a friendship. And now you are in CDL, Encourage Driven Latina. And it's been just such a beautiful journey to watch you execute your courage project, but doing it in a way that you're doing something that you're obviously very passionate about. And like you literally are a magnet to drawing people in. So that was such a long introduction for Khay. Hi, Khay. Welcome. Can you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about you?
Hi. So my name is Kay. I've been I've been a kickboxing instructor for a long time. I've been in kickboxing and martial arts for at least 20 years, in and out of studios and in and out of gyms. It's definitely always been a passion of mine. I started kind of taking private sessions and getting paid under the table for things and kind of gave it a thought like, oh, maybe this could be great, but never gave it 100% of the try. I think because I didn't really have that much support at the time. And so joining CDL has definitely helped me just put everything together. Like I literally manifested it for myself this year and was like, look, if this is it for me, like if this is what I love to do, like let me just give it 100%. And so this was a perfect opportunity to do that in a perfect space. So.
And tell me, how did you get into kickboxing? What is the role of fitness and overall working out? What does that play in your life?
I actually was a pretty angry teenager. I don't think my parents really knew exactly everything that was going on with me, but my mom thought that maybe karate would be a good thing to put me in. And so I started with karate and taekwondo. Because I went to taekwondo first because one of our friends like owned a studio and she was like, well, why don't you try his classes? And I ended up excelling really well in there. The studio ended up closing down and I moved over to karate. And then from there went all the way to, third degree brown and ended up instructing some kids and all ages. And And then from there, I got into kickboxing. And there was like bag work kickboxing, there was sparring kickboxing, and then there was turbo kick. And that's a whole different section of my life. I ended up like teaching aerobic choreographed kickboxing, which was super fun. But it didn't quite do what I wanted to do. So I ended up going back into a studio for kickboxing and started training and doing one-on-one sessions and doing mitts with people. That's kind of what I was like, there's something here and I really love it. I just didn't know how to turn it into a business. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get into the business stuff in a second, but I just feel like this is such an important topic where, you know, as women, and we're going to get into this as well, that like we're both children of immigrants, but we come from different backgrounds, right? So like, are your parents both from the Philippines or yeah, from the Philippines? Okay. So, I mean, it's really the same, right? Like
Yes.
every child of immigrant goes through such similar, so many similar things. So, at least growing up when I was younger, I remember this idea of anger was so shameful. Like you weren't allowed to express anger. And I remember as soon as it was somebody's birthday party and they brought out that piñata, I was going ham on that thing. And it was like the one acceptable way of releasing anger. Yeah. And, you know, you sharing that you like were really, you were easily angry, and that's not a bad thing. It was just like, where do you direct that and how do you use it? And that's beautiful that your mom ended up putting you in karate and then you ended up finding this. So tell me, why is it important for women specifically to practice any type of martial art?
It makes you feel empowered. I feel like women oftentimes are silenced, even in your marriage, in relationships with your parents, in relationships with your family, in Filipino culture especially. It's not, children are normally seen and not heard. Like opinions are not a thing. You don't have one. And so, and we would do this thing, it's called Mandap. You would take the elder's hand and you would put it to your forehead as a sign of respect. Like you don't get to say anything. And you should be, and I grew up in this mindset that you should be thankful that you have all this stuff. You should be, you know, thankful for what you have, even though it's only this kind of thing, you know? And so a lot of that also added to my anger growing up. And it's really important for women to have an outlet, for women to have a space to support each other, to grow with each other, to give each other a space to let out your emotions. And that's why I did a post actually the other day, and that was like, the gym that you choose is really important. It's a space that you spend 1 hour in, but like, let's say you spend more time in there, but the 1 hour that you spend is for yourself. It's for your mental, your physical, and your spiritual. So the gym that you choose is really important because that is where you release your energy. That's where you center yourself and you leave here feeling better. You shouldn't be choosing a gym where you're being judged or people are looking at you and going, look at this lady. Like you should have a space to grow. You should have a space where you're fully supported. And that's really important for women. Besides knowing self-defense and besides knowing how to properly throw a punch, you should also have an outlet.
You said so much. This is why I don't give people questions, because then we miss the magic of like me just being able to pick up from what you just said, because you touched on so many things. So first I'm going to talk about women and self-defense, and most of the people who attend the gym are women, right? And I've brought my mom, and my mom's not athletic. I'm pretty athletic. I played soccer. I have always enjoyed kind of running. I've always been a little bit more of an active child. And I enjoy being active. And my mom didn't really have a childhood like that. She grew up with no running water, no electricity, same ideas of what you were just talking about with, you know, you just need to be grateful for what you have. And I think everybody listening to this podcast, as you were speaking, were probably nodding their head, right? Even if they're not, even if they don't consider themselves Filipina, if they are just like a child of immigrants, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, that is exactly the experience that I've gone through. But specifically about women, I think that, you have done such a good job of making me feel welcomed and challenging me. But also, when my mom comes, she feels like it's a safe space. And she'll even tell you sometimes, she's like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I love coming.
Yeah.
And you always make it fun for her. And I feel like you're just so good at meeting people where they're at and making it such a welcoming environment that there is no shame. And like you've just, first, I just wanted to call out that you've done that very well. And you are very good at that. So the next thing I wanted to touch on is this idea that we should just be grateful. And this is such a common thing. If you are coming, even if you just come from a lower socioeconomic background, it's like, how can we just be humble? And yes, right, let's be grateful for what we have and let's be humble. But sometimes this idea of I should just be grateful for what I have ends up keeping us small, and it doesn't allow us to go after our dreams. So have you seen that happen in your life, and have you justified not taking action by saying, oh, well, I should just be grateful?
My entire life. My entire life. And that's probably the reason why it's taken me so long to start my private coaching business. I mean, I've been in this for how many years, and I just always thought small for myself. And my mom actually, I mean, thank God she got me into this, but then also started like putting fear into my mind and going, oh, you shouldn't fight. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't spar. You could get hurt. There are men in the business that are just out there to hurt people, and you shouldn't be fighting at all. Right. And so, just people putting a stop to my business saying, oh, it's a lot to handle a gym. Like, it's too much to handle a gym. You really just want to, like, make sure that you can take money under the table while you can. And private coaching doesn't really make a lot of money. But like, for who? Like, I'm like, doing CDL has definitely changed my mindset around like, well, it is going to be what you make it. So if you don't, put your mindset around like, yes, this is the amount of money I want to make. I'm going to manifest this. This is going to happen for me. And there are people that are not going to want to do this coaching business, but it's okay because this coaching is very specific to a certain group of people, and they're going to sign up for it because they find value in it. And so changing my mindset around that, like, I didn't have a lot of support in that area. And so I think I've put this coaching business off for like since 2000 something, 2002, maybe 2005. Like, that's when I really started going, oh, like, I'm really teaching this. Like, this could totally be a career. But then people shooting it down saying, oh, it's not going to make a lot of money. I mean, look at how much the studio's making. Look at how much they're paying you. It's not a lot, right? And so those negative thoughts got into my head, and I was like, oh, maybe it's just a sideline gig. And so I always treated it as that. And it was always that for me. But now I'm like, thank God for my husband, but he's able to support me. He's able to like, hey, like, if this is your thing, you need to go do it. Like, give it 100% of a shot. Otherwise, you're always going to be wondering whether this was something that could have been your career or not, So
You said so many good things there. I'm like, where do I go? You actually answered a lot of the questions that I was thinking about asking, but I want to point something out. People wonder, how do I know if this is something I should follow or something I shouldn't follow? And you pointed something out where you've been wanting to do this since 2000 something. And whenever a desire keeps knocking on the door of your intuition and it just keeps coming back and keeps coming back, that is a good sign that this is something that should be followed. And of course, there's always the fear of failure. There's always other people's limiting beliefs that are put on you. But this is something that kept coming back to you. So at what moment did you know, all right, I'm going to give this a real shot? Like, was there an aha moment? Was it just that it kept coming back? For people who are listening who may be in a similar situation where they're like, oh, I want to launch that podcast, or I want to start that business, or I want to get into the tech industry, whatever their goal is, right? That they keep maybe putting off and justifying with, I should just be grateful with where I am. How do they know, okay, now, or like from your experience, how did you know that it was time to take it seriously and really go for it?
a lot of things happened. So I ended up uprooting where I was from. I used to work and live in San Bruno, and I ended up moving out here. And it, I'm thankful for Matt for providing this space because it really has kind of shown me, like, there are people that want your services. There are people that could use your knowledge. I mean, this space, maybe a year to 6 months in, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to stay. Like, it has provided me a space to offer my teachings to people, to offer my teaching style, to show people that they can do hard things. I saw a lot of places that the gym was also lacking and could do better in, and Matt provided me a space to give that to people. And so that was the moment where I was like, I think I'm ready to just, what if I could make this business a better place? What if I could do more? Like, I've already provided that space during the 1 hour that I teach class. What if I could do more? Right. And so that was kind of the moment, like 6 months to a year in here, I was like, oh, we could totally, with the right support, with the right people around me, it just kind of fell into place for me. Something I never thought would happen. So
Yeah, so it sounds like in your mind it was already something that you had started to create, but you then found yourself in not the perfect circumstances, right? Which we'll talk about in a moment, where like you still had to overcome what other people might think. You still had to overcome a lot of different things, but it came to a point where you were like, I either do this now or I don't do it. Yeah. So, can you tell us what your courage project was? Because you've already completed your first courage project.
my courage project was to start my own private coaching business. And I've always done it. I've always done it. Any gym that I worked at, I've always done it. Some people have always approached me and go, hey, I want to work with you one on one. And I kind of always took money under the table, and then sometimes would do things for free. And sometimes people would just want to pick my brain about stuff. And I would spend time outside of my work hours to help these people. And it was great. But I just saw that there's a space here that I could use that's provided for me. It's perfect for all the private sessions. Doing it in my house or doing it outside of work was no longer doable for me because it was cutting into my family time and it was cutting into my personal life. And so I was like, all right, it's now or never. Like, obviously everything is in place. There's like a very clear path for me to start this now. So when I did my courage project, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to make this my courage project and we'll see. Like, if it doesn't work out and I fail, then it's down to we can hit another road. Right. And so this was kind of that final try for it.
Yeah, and for those people who are listening who may not be in California, San Bruno is a city in Northern California. Matt is the owner of the gym that we are currently recording in, where Kay has started her private coaching. So I realized we didn't give people context because we've got people in New York listening, people in Miami, right? So I'm looking at your Courage Project plan. And then for those of you who are listening who may not know what a Courage Project is, it is just your dream project that you've been wanting to do, but you've been afraid to do it. And for Kay, I already knew this was something that she wanted to do. And I mean, you'd been listening to the podcast and we'd been talking a little bit here and there and we had like informal coaching. But when you joined the program, that's when you were like, okay, I'm really going all in on this. And I'm looking at your Courage Project plan because I think as people follow you online or maybe see you in the program now, it's really easy to just be like, oh yeah, Kay's got it together. Like, of course, she already knows all this. But one of the first questions in the Courage Project plan is, does this project scare you and why? And you said, yes, because I still suffer from imposter syndrome and I keep thinking I need more certifications and I feel like I need to prove myself. I still fear that I don't know enough and I struggle knowing that there are maybe people who know more than I do. So hearing that now, right? Because you're on the other side. So,
Yes.
but can you tell us because this is a very valid and common experience that people go through. This is part of what it means to be courageous. It's not that you don't feel the fear. It's like you're going to feel the fear, but you still do it. So tell us a little bit about what was going on in your mind at that time and how did you overcome that to already finish your first courage project in just a few months? Like you're already on to phase 2 of this.
It was not that scary. that I thought, because I was already in it, right? But it was all those thoughts that got in your head. Every time you were about to do something or a step forward, your mind did like 3 steps back. You're like, no, you don't have all these certifications. You don't have this. You don't have that. And yeah, you definitely need more education. But you know what? Like, the fitness industry is ever changing, it's ever evolving. So if you're not currently training, um, which I am, you're not going to be up on that stuff. And so it's like, we had one conversation and you were like, am I there's a brain surgeon that just got their certification and just graduated from school but has not performed any surgeries. And then there was the surgeon that has been doing this for years, like 20 years, like 200 successful surgeries and no certification. Like, who would you rather have? Right. And same goes for my coaches that I receive coaching from. They are people who don't have their certifications, but they have been in this for a really long time. So I feel like I just needed to jump over that hump or that speed bump and just finally see it from this side of the perspective. And I'm like, oh, like it wasn't that scary. Like, yes, I could still get those certifications. I could still like get the knowledge from the book, but I just feel like that people are going to choose somebody that they know has experience. And I've seen that proven to me here in the studio time and time again, where people are like, well, I know that they've been here for years, but when I take your class, you say one thing and it makes a world of a difference in my workout. That's why I'm choosing you to be my coach. And so that has been proven to me numerous times. And that's kind of been a confirming factor for me to do this.
Yeah. And, as I mentioned earlier, we look at you now, or the people who come to the gym look at you as this thought leader, even if for a moment there you didn't see yourself as that thought leader. And I think people see me that way as well. Like, oh, courage comes so easy to Erica. But what I've learned is that we're always going to end up experiencing challenges that are stretching us just outside of the comfort zone, right? So even though from the outside looking in at your experience, I can validate and understand that for you, that was terrifying. For you, there was a lot more to learn because you knew how much there was to learn because you are in this industry. And for anybody out there that's going through something where they're like, oh, why can't I just like hurry up and be brave? Your fear is valid. And it's because it's stretching you out of whatever comfort zone you're currently in. But now you've grown your comfort zone, right? And now the next courage project, you're probably going to feel the same way about it as soon as you get started with that one. But that's what growth is, right? We're never going to finish growing. Like we're constantly going to have to overcome these thoughts. And this is a very common thing that comes up, whether people want to be fitness coaches like you or life coaches like me, or if they are thinking about doing a career switch, there's always that like, oh, but I need the certification first. And also, I think as you were speaking, you made it sound like you literally had no certifications. You have certifications and you have experience. There's just more that you can get. And of course, there's always more, right? I could go get my MBA. I could go do all of these other things. But I think the most important thing is if you allow yourself to try it before you go and do the certification, then to your point, you could still go get the certifications if you want. I could still go get my MBA. Are we going to do it? Who knows? Maybe if we decide to, though, it's going to be very intentional and not from this place of, oh, I need that in order to have confidence. Because you know what else I've seen? When people go and get their certification thinking that the certification is going to give them the confidence, they still feel the same amount of imposter syndrome. Yeah. So that was just a whole ass rant. Do you have anything to say?
No, I still suffer. I'm just going to be honest. I still suffer from imposter syndrome. Like, I still have to self-coach all the time, all the time. And then, like I take on a new client and then I'm like, oh my God, like, can I help this person? Like, what are they looking for? And like, am I that person that they're looking for? Do I have the skill set to help them? Like, that is a constant thing for me every time. But, like once I get started and they start telling me the reason why they came to me, it puts me at ease because I'm like, okay, like I can do this, and whatever it is, whatever it is that we're going to overcome together, like you're going to get something out of this session. I already know it. Right. Like, so it's a constant self-coaching.
Hey, if you don't want another year to go by or you are just thinking about your goals and dreams, then listen up. I'm hosting a free webinar titled How to Make 2025 Your Courage Year. How to create massive change in 90 days without overthinking. This is happening on Monday, December 9th at 5 o'clock Pacific time. And this is 5 p.m. Pacific time. So if you are in Central time, this is going to be 7 o'clock your time. If you're on Eastern time, 8 o'clock your time, all p.m. In this webinar, you will learn why 2025 is the year to step into your courage and why the decisions that you make today dictate your 2025. You're going to learn why fear has kept you feeling stuck in your life and in your business. And you're going to go from thinking about your dream project to actually starting version 1 and completing version 1 in just 90 days. You're going to learn the 3 strategies that have helped me and my clients step into courage to start the business, launch the podcast, level up in their career, negotiate their salary, show up more confidently in dating, and so much more. This webinar is for you if you are ready to discover your purpose and go after it. Maybe you're already successful on paper, but you feel like something is missing or you feel like you're being called for more. This is for you if you are ready to lead with courage, build confidence, and maybe you want to create content or start a business or pivot in your career. It's also for you if your dreams are currently only living in your head or in your journal, but you are ready to make them a reality. This is for you if you've been putting everybody else's needs before your own and you're ready to work on you. It's you time. You're like, it is me season. There has never been a more important time for women to step into their courage, to step into their power. Tell your friends. Make sure that you register for this webinar. Again, it is happening on Monday, December 9th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. This webinar is completely free and it is sponsored by Courage Driven Latina. At the end of the webinar, you are going to learn more about my program, Courage Driven Latina, which is a transformational 12-month group coaching program to help you gain clarity, build confidence, and community. And in this program, you are going to learn how to execute not just one courage project. I mean, on average, the people that have been in this program for a year work on 4 to 5 courage projects in that year. Again, you'll learn all about it at the webinar. There will be a special 48-hour bonus for those of you who attend the webinar. I'm going to say this again. There has never been a more important time for women to take ownership of their lives. We cannot continue to live in fear. I want to remind you that courage doesn't mean that you don't feel fear. Okay, we all feel fear. We are all human beings. But courage means that you take action despite feeling the fear. What we need as women right now is to exercise our courage muscle. We cannot keep letting fear stop us from taking action. We have to take the action even if we are scared. And in this webinar, I'm going to teach you the mindset that you need to have, as well as the 3 strategies, again, that have helped me and over 200 clients go from thinking about this idea to holding it in their hands. I can't wait to see you there. Be sure to tell a friend and let's do this. Yeah, and I'm sure that one of the things that helped you overcome that doubt, because doubt is a normal part of life. I doubt things all the time. I mean, I make different decisions in my business and I'm like, was that the right thing to do? Which direction do I want to go? Just constant. I mean, courage isn't something that we ever stop practicing. But for you, because I know your story, I think a big part of helping you overcome that is obviously one, the tools that we talk about in CDL, like self-coaching, the group calls, seeing other people execute their project. But I think for you, it was also that your project, the end goal of your project was to help others. And I think whenever you're doing something that's more in service and it's something bigger than you, it's easier to overcome that self-doubt and as we had asked you, why was it important for this project to come to life? And like, how is this project going to make the world a better place? You talked about how having this like special place that welcomes all people without judgment is so important, and that the fitness journey is intimidating already. So, like, how is it that you can make this the most accessible to people and give them the confidence to really believe in themselves? Because what happens in the gym is one thing, but I like constantly when I'm working out, I say to myself, I can do hard things. Like, if I can do this workout right now, I can do hard things outside as well. Right. So, even though you're helping people in the gym, you're also just helping them with their health, with their confidence. Like, it spills over to all of these different areas. So how did having a bigger purpose help you overcome the self-doubt?
That's a lot. Just like you said, I come from a place of service, right? Like when I really started realizing like the potential here and what I could really do and accomplish, I started really thinking about each person that I really wanted to help. And every time like I pass through class, right, I'll give you guys a combination. You guys are punching the bags. Whenever I weave through the class, I'll always like either give a positive comment or try to tell you guys something that might help you. And so, it's just like serving people has been a big purpose for me. If service is below you, then leadership is beyond you, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have to be able to serve and help these people. And sometimes it isn't about the roundhouse. Sometimes it's them coming to a place and being able to just cry in front of their bag. And sometimes giving them a space to look, they're like, I look so stupid right now. And I'm like, you don't look stupid. You look like you're learning something that's not in your comfort zone. Like, it's okay. It's okay to have that here. It's okay to be that. I've grown up around a lot of shame and a lot of like, just like people judging you all the time. I come from toxic gym environments, and it's been a real big thing for me to provide the complete opposite for people.
Okay, obviously we are coming up to the holiday season, and then soon it's going to be New Year's resolutions. And a lot of people who are listening to the podcast want to prioritize their fitness. Mm-hmm. So what is like a mindset shift, or maybe like a thought error that you see people have, or a limiting belief that they have around fitness, that like if you could have everybody listening to this podcast believe one thing about their fitness and wellness, what would that be? What would that belief that you instill into them be?
It doesn't need to be an hour. It doesn't need to be years. So I always say this to people, right? I talked about it this week. Set your ceiling and set your floor. If your ceiling is, well, I would like 3 hours in the gym with 30 minutes of meditation, mm-hmm. What's your floor, right? Well, if all I had was 15 minutes, I would still take it, right? So like you're going to have your really hard days and you're going to have your easy days. So if all you have is 15 minutes of movement, and that's just what you feel like you have the mental capacity to do this week, then do 15 minutes of movement every day and set your alarm. So consistency is always better than motivation. Motivation leaves. It doesn't stay. So consistency, showing up no matter what you feel like, no matter what it looks like, and your 100% is going to look different every day, right? Sometimes 100% is 5 meals and 200 grams of protein, and some days your 100% is a prayer and a Snickers bar. So I always tell people that. I'm like, look, like some days you're not going to get it all in, but if it's 100% of your effort, like it counts. So it's okay. Just get it done and get it in, and you can do hard things. And the more that you trust yourself with, if you set your alarm at 4 o'clock every day and you say for 15 minutes, I'm going to move my body when that alarm goes off, the more you stick consistent to that 4 o'clock alarm, the more you're going to learn how to trust yourself. And when you are disciplined that way, then you can say, all right, well, next week I'm going to try for 30 minutes. And that 30 minutes turns into an hour. And then you start hitting your ceiling, mm-hmm. right? When you stick to that consistency. Yeah. People always expect that to be fast. It's actually like a year of building it.
Yeah.
After that year, you're like, okay, now I'm at an hour. Like,
Yeah.
maybe next year I'll get to 3.
You brought up two things that I think are so important. So the first one is this all or nothing thinking, right? People think they have to go all out, or like, why bother if I only have 5, 10, 15 minutes?
Right.
And what you're saying is the 10 minutes of movement, the 15 minutes of movement is better than not doing anything. So like, if you
Correct.
can't make it to your hour kickboxing class, can you go for a mile walk or a 10-minute walk or something like that? And then the other thing that you pointed out that is so important that we try to also teach inside of Courage Driven Latina is that the motivation is a feeling, right? Motivation is a feeling. It's not structure, and it's not something that you can always rely on, because some days you're going to feel motivated and other days you're not, especially if you're female, right? Every time we start our cycle, we're not motivated.
Right. To do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So I love consistency over motivation. And then, something is better than nothing.
Right. Right.
Lovely.
Yeah. I stick to that. And I let people know, I'm like, look, God, there was something that I was going to say and I lost it. I talked about it in class today too. There's like that guy that goes, okay, like I'm going to go in the gym and I'm going to touch every machine and I'm going to be in here for 5 hours. Like, if consistency is the name of the game and you just were there for 5 hours, you're not going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, that's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. You need to give yourself, if 15 minutes is sustainable, do what is sustainable to you.
Yeah.
And, that's going to win every single time.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for people who are gearing up for the new year and really do want to prioritize their fitness, and maybe they were in shape and maybe they had life changes, like maybe the pandemic threw them off, maybe they became new moms, maybe they moved, maybe the gym they went to close, like, obstacles are going to happen. Like, what is your advice for people to get back and be able to implement what you mentioned about something is better than nothing, and then consistency over motivation?
While you're shopping around for a gym, to pull up YouTube, find a subscription that you really like. Start getting comfortable with moving your body while you're alone. And then you get comfortable with yourself. And then when you try to, find a gym and search for a gym and try different classes, the more you kind of search outside of your comfort zone, you'll be like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this, or maybe I can do bar. Like, I never saw myself doing that, but I've done it at home, so let me go try it, right? Don't be afraid to venture outside of your comfort zone. But I would say start at home and start it with yourself, and start with small little 15-minute increments, and you'll build yourself up from there. People always want fast results, and they go, I want to join a program and it's going to be great. Like, sometimes you enter a gym and it's not what you thought it was, so be really keen with like trials. Use trials, check them out, see what their coaches look like, see what, their member base looks like. I'm really adamant about that, like going in to try them out, because you want coaches that are not going to judge you, but are going to support you and meet you where you're at, not expect you to be at a certain level, or they won't pay any attention to you. I've seen a lot of that as well.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to want to enter an environment where the member base is super helpful, the coaches are super welcoming, and it inspires a space for you to grow and learn.
That is really good advice. It's kind of like dating. It's like, go on a few dates before you actually commit to one.
Yeah. And try going in there without like a predisposition or like some people go, oh, I've done kickboxing before. And they go in there and go, oh, I already know what I'm doing. Like, that doesn't leave you open for coaching. So
that's huge.
Yeah. It doesn't leave you open to be coached. I think as a coach myself, that's one of the hardest things I encounter when people come in and they go, oh, I already know what I'm doing. I don't need to buy trials, or I don't need to do this, or I don't need to do that. It's like, yes, you've done it before, but someone else always has a new perspective for you. There's always something to learn. Even me as a coach, I'll never go into a gym and say, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to go in there and be like, yes, I'm here to learn. I've done this before, but I'm here to learn. Please teach it your way. I'm here for you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So that's super key when you're trying to learn something new, is to leave yourself open for coaching.
Yeah. So in mindfulness, so before starting my coaching business, I became a yoga instructor, and my goal was to open up a gym. So like, that was my goal. And then the pandemic happened 2 months after. So I was like, okay, well, that goal is not happening, and maybe it might happen in the future. But one of the big things that I got really into was mindfulness, meditation, and it happened through yoga. But there's a concept in mindfulness that's called beginner's mind, which is exactly what you're describing. So it's like if we go into something with the assumption that we already know and there's nothing for us to learn, we're closed. But if we go to it with an open mind, we could be blown away, or we could learn the same concept in a different way. Like we're missing out on learning if we're already coming in with a closed mind, or I already know what I'm doing. And the truth is we all have, like, growth is not something that we finish. We don't get to this place where we're done growing. There's always something that we can learn from literally anybody in the world. So I love that you brought that up, because that's a common thing I see too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It makes it really hard to coach somebody because like there are certain ways that we do things and there are reasons why we do this. And, like there are reasons why we have certain techniques, and some people receive coaching from one way and they're like, oh, well, this is the way. And I'm like, no, there's many ways.
Right.
Allow me to help you so that you don't get injured.
Yeah.
I want you here and not on your couch giving up on your goals. I want you here.
Yeah.
So that's my main thing, is like, you got to be here and you got to be open to it. We're going to have hard conversations. That's what fitness is about, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like when people search for fitness, they are also searching for other things in life.
Tell us more. This is so fascinating.
When they come to a gym, or when they go, hey, I want to make a commitment to myself on this, they are also looking to elevate their mentality. They're looking to elevate their life. They're looking for all the other things. Fitness is the main part. Like it's just one road that opens you up to a whole bunch of things. Well, to do hard things in fitness, you have to be coachable. Oh, to be coachable, you have to hear hard things about yourself that you don't want to hear. So I feel like they go hand in hand with mindset, meditation, with all those things. When people start getting deep into fitness, you start opening your mind up to all the things.
Yeah. It's so funny. I've coached so many people. And what I have found is that the people who started off with being more disciplined with their fitness, whether it was running consistently, going to yoga consistently, everything kind of followed through. Like the project they wanted to execute was more attainable. And that's why I also have the concept of the 4 M's, and the first M is movement, right? Get yourself moving. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So now I know that we are almost at time. So I would like to go back to your courage project and just ask a few questions about how you went from, like, because as people are listening to this interview, they're like, obviously she knows what she's talking about. I can't believe that it was hard for her to get started. But that's always the hardest part, like getting started and then being consistent. So where are you now when it comes to your courage project?
I feel like I've accomplished the first part of it already. So now what I want to do is elevate further by working on the social media aspect of it. And I think eventually further off in my mind is to also do podcasts.
Yeah.
But
I would still listen to your podcast.
Yeah. It's just, there's a whole mentality that goes with starting your fitness journey. And there's a whole thing that comes with it. And especially people who have reached a certain part of their fitness journey and go, where do I go from here? Like, what's next? Right. And so I kind of wanted to start a podcast on that as well. And so that's where I'm at. I'm figuring out, for me personally, like, what's next now? How can I make this better? How can I reach more people? How can I let people know that this isn't that scary? Like kickboxing, I feel like is so intimidating already. So it's like, I'm trying to make it where, like, how do I bring more people in here? Because it's not just kickboxing. It's more than that. It's a community of people that will help you get it all started. So
yeah. And I think a podcast is something that obviously people who are local here should definitely come to the gym, but there's people who aren't local, right? That you still, you want to make more of an impact, not just for the people that are in your area. So I love that for you, a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, let's say that somebody's listening to this podcast episode and they have a goal that they want to go after, and maybe they've been considering doing something, whether it's join Courage Driven Latina or maybe another program that they've seen, and they really want to take that first step, what advice would you have for them?
Do it. Just do it. Do it. Invest in yourself. I always was around family and friends that like, that coaching business costs how much? Personal coaching costs how much? Girl, you could just look up on YouTube. Like, no, you pay for this coaching to be around mindsets that you want to acquire, right? Like don't expect people who work so hard to do things for free.
Yeah.
Like, pay for the service, invest in yourself so that you could also elevate. So I would my best advice is just to go for it. If it's been something that's like been knocking at your door, like, do it.
Yeah. And the people that are listening are probably like, oh my gosh, I have that family member. And the thing is that, yes, people could go find anything online. We're living in the age of information, right? But people aren't paying for information. They're paying for accountability, for structure, and for literally attention to their specific need. So, and that is why people are willing to work with you and work with you privately rather than just taking the group classes, because they're getting your one-on-one attention. They're getting feedback directly on their form. Or even for me, right? Like, you were listening to the podcast and you got a lot of value from the podcast before joining the program, but then you've only been in the program for what, like 3 months, and you've already finished your first project, and you're like getting ready for your next one. Like, now you've taken the step, you've made money from it, you've built a reputation around a private coach here as well, and like had a wait list waiting for you. It was just,
it was crazy. It's crazy to see it all unfold and to see it happening. It's definitely, like, people go, oh, you could, like you said, it's the age of information. You can find that information anywhere, right? But to be around people who are also trying to achieve the same thing, and then to also have people lift you up and say, you can do this. Like, you're already doing this. And to like knock some sense into you sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, what negative thoughts are you having, girl? Like, let me just list it out for you. A, B, and C. This is why you should do it. To have those kind of people around you, it's priceless. You can't put a price tag on it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I feel like you're talking about this from two different experiences.
Yeah.
Like, you being a client and being surrounded by other women who are also doing the thing that scares them, but also like you being the coach for your clients in the gym, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, let's see. So with the fears that you had whenever you were first starting your Courage project, how do you feel about them now?
That I should have done them a long time ago. But I feel like timing and everything was perfect. Like, I feel like the opportunity wasn't given to me then because I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't in a place in my life to take it on. And so it's funny, like, all roads lead here.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And so now that I'm here, I'm like, okay, now I can pave my own way. So I'm in a place where I can do that. And it's amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm so excited for your next Courage project. Obviously, you're still in the program for like a while. You're still in it for another 9 months. So tell me, what have you learned in the program that you're going to keep taking with you even after the program?
All the self-coaching techniques. All the self-coaching techniques. Like, I self-coach daily on things.
Yeah.
And just having a structure for the self-coaching, right? Like, there are things you can say to yourself all the time, but like this, having the structure and using the structure for a thought process, that's like gold.
Yeah.
I take that with me all the time, and I use that for my journaling.
Yeah. So what were you doing on a like daily basis before joining the program versus now? Because now it sounds like journaling is a big part, self-coaching is a big part. What was your life like before the program versus now that you're 3 months in the program?
So before the program, I didn't have a direction. I was just kind of going for this. And it's funny because I had this thought in my head that I was like, what if I like tell Matt what if I start my own business and then me and Matt could do like a business to business kind of thing, right? Like, I'm like, what if I had all these what ifs. And then I started listening to you and I started listening to your podcast, and I was like, I feel like I need like some kind of I need someone to like steer me down the right road. Right. And so after I joined CDL, I felt like everything had a lesson plan. On a daily basis, I was like, okay, let's follow this structure, self coach. What's next? And then to do that, you need to. So all my thought process, just I feel like my jumble of thoughts came together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had direction on how and where and when.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like I was sitting on a lot of stuff too. And
yeah.
you were just,
like a lot of time spending in the brain versus
a lot of time
like
spending in my mind, because there was nobody that in my family or nobody around me that was in the same field that I could speak to, and like, yes, I had my coaches and my coworkers here, but they had never done this either.
Right.
I'm
You're doing
the more
something
experienced
new. Yeah.
one. And so I'm doing something new, and I kind of needed a community around me to be like, look, this is how you do this. And then when you have these thoughts, this is what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like you had people in your life where you shared your dreams and they were like almost, sharing their own limitations on like, oh, I don't think that'd be possible, but it's because they've never done it before.
Right.
Just like those people existed in your life. I feel like in order to do something that is courageous and something that is impactful, you need somebody to be in your life to be like, oh, of course you can do that. Why not? Right. And then it's almost shocking where you're like, wait, what? I can? Yeah. And I feel like that's what communities like Courage Driven Latina do, or I always say, like, the number one thing, if you want to do something that scares you, but you know deep down that you want to do it, it's that you must surround yourself with people who are going where you're going or who have already been there, because those people will never shut down your dream. Right. They're always like, oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Being around that has been amazing.
Yeah.
I've been surrounded by people who always the self limitations. And so you take it on and you're like, okay, maybe this. And then you take on more negative thoughts and you just live in your head.
Exactly.
So it's definitely been a blessing to be part of CDL.
I'm so glad. And, these people that are in our lives and in our family, like, they love us and they want us to be safe, and they don't want to see you try something and like have it not succeed. And, it's not that they want to see us fail. I think it's more that they can't comprehend our vision. Right. They don't know where we're going. And that's why it's really hard for them to validate and support us. But being in community is so important. And, I was going to ask you a question earlier when you were talking about your story. Because I was just going to say, being surrounded by other rebels. Do you consider yourself a rebel in your family?
Definitely. Definitely. I'm always the black sheep. I'm always the one that says shit that they don't want to hear. Like, oh, that makes you uncomfortable. I'm sorry. The subject is totally uncomfortable.
Yeah. Exactly. And
I think it's totally uncomfortable. And you sweeping it under the rug is not going to happen around me.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that is what unifies people in the room as well. It's like everybody wants to be the best version of themselves. Everybody feels like they're the rebel of their family or their friend group, and they're just the one that's just, doing something that is unexpected. And to be surrounded by other rebels that are like, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It makes it so much easier to keep going. Well, I think those were pretty much all the questions I had for you. Is there anything I did not ask that you'd like to share?
No, I feel like we covered everything, even stuff that I didn't expect us to cover.
Yeah.
So that was good. Thank you.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a great interview. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to have to invite you back whenever you're done with your next 2 Courage projects, because this was just Courage Project number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whenever you launch your podcast, which could be one of your Courage projects, by the way, there is a launching a podcast course inside of the curriculum.
Oh, crap.
So,
okay.
But when you do that, we could even give you the recording for this if you wanted to put it on your podcast too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Kay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theericacruz.com. That's Erica with a K, or you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erica Cruz. That's Erica with a K, because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.